In the next episode of the Apple Throws a Tantrum in the EU saga, alternative app stores will be allowed on Apple iPad in the EU from September 16th. You might be wondering, what? We already covered this story. Alternative app stores were going to be allowed months ago. Now that's where you're wrong, because when this was passed, Apple agreed to implement it on iOS. Fortunately, they did a clever little thing where they don't actually consider the operating system on the iPad iOS. They call it something really creative, iPadOS. So Apple pretty much turned around and said, we're not rolling out all this stuff that we're required to roll out for the DMA on the iPad because we're only required to do it on mobile operating systems on a phone, iOS. Anyway, the EU's like, no, it's the same OS. You can't do that. So that's this update. So now they are forced and they're going to allow alternative app stores on the iPad from September 16th, which is 3 days from the time of recording. So apps are notarized by Apple for security purposes before they can be released on alternative app stores. App developers also have to sign new business terms with Apple and pay a very controversial core technology fee above a certain threshold, which is, I don't know how long that's going to last. I think the EU is still targeting that because it's pretty messed up. As for web browsers, while third-party browsers like Chrome and Firefox have been available for a while, they all still use WebKit to load web content. Tech companies haven't taken advantage of the DMA to release any EU-specific browser app for a year so far. And that's probably going to stay for a while. I've been listening to a different podcast about this, and they brought up a lot of good points as to why it's unlikely for these web browsers. And even Jonah and I said this way back on a Techler Talks, where it's like, it's just unlikely for Apple to do this, and then the browser companies go, oh yeah, let's start maintaining 2 versions of our browser on iOS in different regions. So until this is actually rolled out globally, cough US should push Apple in a similar direction, then that's when we might start seeing alternative web browser engines on iOS devices. Oh, and iPadOS devices. Don't forget, those are 2 different operating systems, even though they do exactly the same things.
Hey, they're not exactly the same. The iPad didn't have a calculator until recently.
That's true. But they rolled one out, and now it's the same. And a weather app. Thanks for watching this clip. It's actually taken from the Surveillance Report podcast, which is our full-length podcast where we talk about privacy and security news every single week. We post it on YouTube as a video. We also post it on PeerTube for those of you who don't like YouTube. And we also post it as an audio version that you can find on every major podcasting app, as well as just RSS. Check us out either here on the screen somewhere or at surveillancereport.tech. And stay up to date out there so you can keep yourself and the people around you safe.